Matte Assist ML is a new node in Silhouette 2024 that can create fully animated mattes out of a single frame. This is a great way to create fast mattes for garbage masks, temp comps, or any place where sub-pixel perfect roto isn't necessary. I'm Ben Brownlee for Boris Effects, and let's see how easy it is to get these results. At its simplest level, you just have to feed it an alpha channel into the Matte Assist ML node. In this example, I've rotoed the first frame, and let's put this into a Matte Assist ML node. And because we're using roto, I'll port that into the data port, come down to the node parameters down here and say roto data port. And now I can just hit play and I have a matte created across all frames. Now I should say all of this is processed on your system, so nothing's being sent to the cloud, so there's no worries about the security of your footage. Let's look at another clip and another way to create a alpha channel. Now sometimes I might not have an already rotoed frame, or I don't want to actually spend the time rotoing even a single frame. In these cases, what I can do is I can use the new Easy Mask, which is here in the key category. Now this is a simple tool. All we have to do is tell Silhouette what is a foreground and what is a background. We can use the different brushes over on the left hand side, or the way that I prefer to do it is just left click to define my foreground, and I can make my brush bigger or smaller by holding down the Control or Command key and just scrubbing in there. And then I can just right click and define my background. Now we can do quite a lot with this, or just use scribbles. And you'll see that as soon as I define a background, if my viewer is set to output, it's going to start creating up an alpha channel for us. Now we could sort of spend a little bit of time refining this and getting this looking really nice, but actually because we're piping this into a Matte Assist node, a lot of the time that's not necessary. So I'm going to bring in the Matte Assist ML now and do the same thing. I'm going to connect my data ports together here. And if we look down at the node parameters now, we can see that the mask source is the input alpha, so what's coming out the Easy Mask. The reference frame is set to a particular frame, which is frame 1. We can keyframe this as well if we use markers, or I can use keyframes directly through the data port. Wherever I painted up an Easy Mask, that's going to automatically set me a new keyframe. So if we take a look at our image, I can see I do need to define that background a little bit more because I haven't cut out this. Boom. And all of those are now going to join us in the Easy Mask. Again, let's hit play. And this is Ultra HD one more time, and we're getting really quite nice responsive playback here. And this is a great time saver for complex shots, or to get a rough idea of what your matte should be looking like. Okay, let's take a look at another shot now. And we see here, if I go back to frame number 1, we're looking to cut out the woman on the left here, and her arm isn't actually visible until, probably about 13 frames in. So we don't always have to use the first frame to create up our initial matte. And we don't even have to use the entire shot either. If I come up into my ROI up here, I can define or limit our ROI here, so our region of interest here. So it's only going to be looking at the area of the shot where we absolutely need it to look at. So let's bring it back down here somewhere. And that defines all of this. And I'll come in around about here, which is frame 20. And let's create an Easy Mask on this. And before I do any painting, I'm just going to set the viewer to input so that I can define my foreground and background a little bit more before it starts processing out an alpha channel. And as soon as I change this now to output, it's going to calculate the alpha for me. And I can just make any sort of adjustments that I need to. Lovely. And let's not spend too much time filling in the details here, even though I absolutely could. But because we're taking this into the Matte Assist ML, it's going to do a lot of the work for us. So let's play this one back. And you'll see that that picks up all of the matte right from the beginning all the way to the end. We'd also have a little bit more here being picked up, so I can see if coming in and creating a new easy mask on this frame is going to give me a different result. And because we piped in that data output, all of the keyframes that are going on upstream are automatically rolling in to the new Matte Assist ML calculation. Okay, in this next shot, this is the result that I get out of Matte Assist ML with a couple of keyframes in Easy Mask. It's nice and consistent, but if we have a little look over here and zoom in, it does lack a little bit of that detail in the hair that we're looking for. So let's explore another classic silhouette node that's had some updates to it. And here's PowerMatte. Now with PowerMatte, you used to have to use shapes to define foreground and background, but we don't have to do that anymore. We have a new input called the auxiliary trimap here, and we can use the output from the Matte Assist to create up that trimap. So trimap, there we go. And let's pipe this into Matte Assist. And let's have a little look here. So what we get is a black background, a white foreground, and then the grey kind of unknown. So that's the stuff that the PowerMatte has to work out. And let's just pipe our original source into the foreground, and we'll pipe our trimap into the auxiliary trimap and change our auxiliary trimap to the trimap input. Let's zoom in. And now we can see we're getting some more detail happening within the hair. I can change my accuracy up a little bit here, add in a little bit of de-artifacting maybe, or what I usually find works out a bit better is to kind of muck around with the parameters in the trimap here. Maybe take the edge out a little bit and just eat the position in a little bit there, and we end up with something that looks a little bit more hairy. And we can sort of play around with those parameters until we find the right sort of balance, depending on how big the hair is, how hairy the hair is. There we go, and we've got a bit more detail in the hair. We've got some other stuff happening down there, but it's actually a pretty good starting point. Now remember that the Matte Assist ML is not a replacement for traditional Roto. Actually, I tend to think of it more like a keyer. So in that sort of spirit, you can actually combine this with other sorts of procedural keyers or roto nodes to create up our final matte. Which is what I've done with this final tree here. So, you know, most of the stuff is the PowerMatte as we had it previously, but I've combined that with some roto holdout areas to just sort of bring in the original Matte Assist ML that we had previously, and combine that with the hair just on the top of the head, and that sort of helps to give us, you know, a result that is a bit closer to the final one. And that's a quick overview on how to use Matte Assist ML to create fast animated mattes with limited artist input. Now obviously this isn't going to remove the need for roto, but what it does do is it allows you to explore with your comps in faster time than with previous sort of traditional techniques. And then just combine it with Easy Mask, PowerMatte and trimap nodes to add even more tools into your silhouette bag of tricks. And then if there are any problems, you know, just add a bit of paint to it, you know, paint upstream or downstream, you know, all of the traditional tools are there for you. Users on a subscription or support contract can use Silhouette 2024 right now. Just go to your hub and click on the upgrade button with one single click. Or if you want to take a free trial or learn more about this and all of the new features in Silhouette 2024, head on over to boriseffects.com. Let us know more of what you want to see with training material when it comes to Silhouette as well in the comments below. My name is Ben Brownlee for Boris Effects. See you again soon.